techniques for better blending. Hardly anyone's talking about it, but we could all benefit if we had a better understanding of ray depth in the light path material node. The problem is pretty simple. Our ground with a strong light is casting color upon the clouds. It may seem at first as though you need to change the clouds, but the interesting thing about Blender and the way it bounces light is the green color up here on the clouds. It's the fault of the material that has the green. The material of the ground certainly has the green that we're going to be using as our stand-in landscape material. Some of these clouds are reflecting green from the ground. Some of these clouds are not reflecting green from the ground. What we've done with this is very simply fed a cell Voronoi texture at a scale of 3 and used Node Wrangler's Control-T to make sure the texture coordinate goes to the object that has the material. The Voronoi texture is multicolored. So when I mix it with a mix color node, setting the mix type to color, and then putting the factor all the way up to 0.9 from 0.5, and just selecting a green that was kind of green, kind of yellow, the effect that material has on the clouds betrays the fact that those clouds are half a Blender unit above the landscape. So that in Blender scale means that we're looking at clouds that are roughly 1.5 feet above a ground plane. I am forcing perspective. Now, if you're wondering about the cloud material and why it looks all black, but when I render it, it comes out as volume, I knew it would come out decently as volume because I borrowed from myself a cloud material that you can find in my other video, number 12, Cloud Cards in Blender for 3D volumetrics, and it's a way to fake the appearance of clouds and how they move. Yet when you need real clouds, this trick of fake will actually provide you with the information you need to see the real clouds in action. And then for fast render, you can simply cut it down to being just the simple two-dimensional cards. This is the Blender bit. How do we get rid of this green color cast? Or even more interestingly, how do we take control of it to change it? Let me walk my camera to the side a little bit here. Like that. Here, that green color cast is all gone, and the way it has been made to appear to go is not some sort of post-processing, which I think is what a lot of people use, but we use this node with all these sockets, and it is a material node, so Shift-A, Input, Light Path, gives you the Light Path node. Ray Depth is what's happening when you're using volumetrics and the color is bouncing up inside. So rather than, let's see, mute, the letter M, there we go. Rather than post-process and then struggle to work the green out and put in some form of blue to match the atmosphere, we can change it inside Blender without all that extra post effort. By activating a mix color node and putting the color that we desire as color 2, ray depth informing the factor will help provide this information to Blender. So the green is green, and what's confusing is the green continues to have the effect on anything it touches. You've probably seen this sort of example before. Here, yes, it's purple because we just changed that color to purple. And so here, the ray depth is also in effect on a glossy material. Is it the reflection of the material? This is where the light path node gets a little crazy, is because it's like one step removed from the object that has the material. Some ways this is really cool, in other ways this is really confusing. The purple is a reflection of the main material, and because the clouds are not things that are reflecting the color like a mirror, we have to find the other solution. You'll need multiple types of objects. Here we have a gloss, here we have a volume, and here we have a standard solid material, which is just a diffuse material. And it's fun because this can get you closer to different special effects. If you're looking for some sort of through the looking glass twist on what it is that you've got going on, this would easily do that. Ray length and ray depth are two very different things. Here we see that the length of the rays that represent the material, the closer they are, the more it borrows from socket of color 1, which is very simply that green Vernois cell texture. The farther the ray has to travel, the more it becomes color 2, which is whatever we stipulate. Could be a noise texture, could be a checker texture, or it could just be a color. So even the reflection begins the ray length all over again because it's a brand new glossy ray. Ooh, yeah, there's all sorts of interesting little ways to confuse yourself with this node. Your ground is perhaps way more complicated than what I've done here, and this is now irrelevant. What we're talking about is changing the color of your ground. So finally your ground has a color, and where you used to have that color going straight in to the material output through the shader, you would now tell Blender, I want the color of my ground to change as it's hit something with a longer ray depth. And then we'll just quick take a look at ray depth. Of course, now I am raising another question. What about when you have a reflection? It's totally possible that in some sci-fi scene you would have a mirrored object, and you don't want to mess up the clouds, so that color for a glossy ray should now be the color that was originally intended. Let's see if that worked. It did. So I was able to affect the clouds and then unaffect a shiny object, and that shiny object could also really basically be a diffuse object. Oh, I just keep getting deeper into this, don't I? Diffuse object. I need to double check that I'm not giving you some weird information. I said we were going to talk about ray depth, and we are really going to right now. Ray depth is something that is controlled in light paths, and in restoring my node group here, which you saw me build, so I'm not going to rebuild it for you right this minute. We can go into the light paths that hide inside the render tab. Light paths. Typically, I work at 0, and 0 means don't bounce nothing. And when you don't bounce nothing, you get some problems with reflections, and you get some problems with volumetric clouds of any sort. Allowing just one bounce on transparency will show you where your volume is, but it won't give you any volume. Allowing one bounce overall, because this limits all the bounces. So since these bounces are 1, 4, 8, 8, there's a maximum of 8. Let's go ahead and give it that maximum of 8. And if our render time is really slow with a volume that is or isn't reflecting the ground, the default step size is 0.1, and that makes the render happen much faster because there's much less quality inside the volume. All right, transparency 1 to 8. Bow. There you can see. Getting a little ahead of myself. Is that the split? I think that's the split of materials, isn't it? Oh, it sure is. There, let's kind of run right down the middle. Dun, dun, dun. That's kind of right down the middle, and I also want to look up because this is all about clouds. There we go. Now I should be seeing the green which is a material you would be tempted to fix in post, and the red, which is the material that we are fixing now. And the way to properly fix it is to make sure that a light path node mixed in with your landscape color takes care of things not being green. You could even force it to be white. You can see on this side that now it's not green or red. We've told it to be white. So arguably, you've already done your post-processing right here, but in the scene, which is advisable. If I change it to full global illumination, I have to Shift-Z back into 3D view or whatever view it came from, and then Shift-Z back so that my memory card can feel anew the light path settings. And I like a little bit of blue kind of faking from the environment. This environment, can we just quickly address that? Shift F3 into material nodes, and then the node tree type is going to be world, which is a click down there on the bottom. This sky texture is great. It feeds right into the color. But what I would like to do is go into color and manipulate the RGB curves. And in doing that, I can hit Shift F5 and 0 and Shift Z to look through the camera in the 3D view, and then I can begin ticking things around a little bit. So the more I sling this down in a hammock, the deeper the blue, and also the more pronounced the horizon. This one is not tied into the direction of the light, but I just want more darn blue in my scene coming from the environment itself, because that also translates into something that hits the clouds. So now you want pink clouds. We might as well go with this all the way, right? What did we just do? We just did input light path, and we used a color, the mix RGB. So let's already do the ray depth as the controller for factor. Let's let that mix in a pink. Whoa, pink. And we're going to stick this as an interrupt for the color we're interrupting. And in this case, with the environment, it is coming out of my new RGB curves. That goes into slot 1. Oh, boy. I think that's working. We now have a pink tint from diffuse depth. You see what fun? There we go. Look at that. That's a pretty pink. Aww. There we go. I have some wallpaper for a kid's room right now. Let's shrink this down a little bit and have a look. Okay. Even the sky can play this game. The pink is brought to you by the environment texture. This kind of color play is totally acceptable using that light path material node. So what we have adjusted is on the right hand side. And because the pink bouncing of light path material nodes is coming from the environment, it's taken the white and added to it pink in this diffuse depth, which is kind of accurate. You'll see these clouds don't seem to have any pink from the environment. And that's because, think of the color wheel. The green is green, blue and yellow, and it's adding a red, and so these colors are additive and they become a white, whereas the ground itself and the reflection of the ground is allowed to go to a pink. So there is a pink happening over here. You should absolutely play with this. This to me is like so attractive. I'm gonna just it's like surreal without actually being surreal. And yeah, I probably should have cut some edges off of this. I'm gonna do that. So you've got enough information to be dangerous right now. I'm going to go ahead and create my my image for the YouTube video, and dun, 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 dun. There you go. These are things we should all know for blending that is more fun. Absolutely, go out there and experiment with, I didn't name anything, with the light path material node. And remember, you can stick it on your environment. Yeah, this is something we should all know for blending that's more fun. Blend on and take care.